John and Lisa had been searching for the perfect house for months. Their plan was simple: find a charming, affordable place to rent in the countryside where they could escape the noise and stress of the city. When they found an old, isolated Victorian mansion at a price far below their budget, they thought they had luck. It had everything they were looking for: sprawling grounds, a large garden, and enough space to start a family. The only oddity was the landlord's strange warning as they signed the lease. "You might hear things at night," he said, almost in passing. "This house has a lot of history." John and Lisa had smiled and nodded, paying little attention. What old house didn't have some creaks and groans? The first few nights in the house were peaceful, almost too quiet. They enjoyed the crispy autumn air, the scent of leaves slowly decaying in the forest that were their property. Lisa spent her days arranging furniture, making the house feel like home, while John commuted back and forth to his office job in the city. But as the days grew shorter and the nights longer, things started to change. It began. Whispers in night that they could never catch. Lisa would wake up suddenly, heart racing, certain she would have heard a voice calling her name. John comforted her as she lay wide-eyed in bed, but the whispers continued, growing louder each night. On the fifth night, Lisa heard footsteps. She sat in bed listening. It was unmistakable. Slow steps coming from the hallway outside their bedroom. The wooden floors creaked under the weight of each step as they stopped right outside the door. "John," she whispered, shaking him awake. "Someone's in the house." John growled, rubbing his eyes. "There's no one here, Lisa. Go back to sleep." She was insistent. "Listen." They both sat in darkness, holding their breath. A few moments passed in silence, and then they heard a soft, scraping sound, like fingernails trailing along the walls. "See?" Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. John climbed out of the bed and grabbed the baseball bat he kept by the door. He opened the bedroom door slowly, peering into the dark hallway. There was no one there. He flicked on the light, revealing the long, empty corridor. But as they both stood in the light, Lisa noticed something strange. The walls of the hallway were covered in long, deep scratches, as if something or someone had clawed at them. "John," she pointed. He froze. "What the hell?" The next morning, they called the landlord. He seemed unsurprised but evasive, offering little explanation beyond saying the house was old and character. Frustrated but willingly to break the lease, they decided to stay, hoping it was just their nerves playing tricks on them. That night, the scratching came again. Only this time it was louder, more urgent, and the footsteps, heavier, deliberate, didn't just stop at the door. They continued through the house, pacing, circling, as though someone was moving from room to room. John, determined to put an end to it, stayed awake with a flashlight. Around midnight, they heard it again. Faint creaking of footsteps, but this time accompanied by a low, guttural moan. Lisa grabbed his arm, her face pale. "John, I want to move, please." He stood up, his eyes fixed on the hallway. "I'm going to check the basement." Lisa grabbed his arm. "Don't, please, don't." But John was already moving, flashlight in hand, heading toward the basement door at the end of the hallway. It was being locked since they had moved in, and neither of them had bothered to find the key. But now something compelled him to go there. The door was unlocked when they tried it. With a creak, it swung open. A cold gust of air wafted up the dark stairs below. The scent, mildew, and something else, something rotten, clung into the air. John hesitated only briefly before descending, the light from his flashlight cutting through the thick darkness. "John, don't go there," Lisa called after him, her voice breaking. But he didn't listen. As he reached the bottom of the stairs, he saw it. The basement was massive, much larger than he would expected. And in the center of the room stood a heavy stone slab, like a makeshift altar. Strange faded symbols were etched into the walls, and scattered around the slab were old, rotting pieces of furniture covered in dust. John's flashlight flickered. He smacked it against his palm, trying to steady the beam. In the brief moments of the light blinked out, he thought he saw movement, shadows, shifting in the corner of the room. When the light finally stabilized, he froze. Standing near the slab was a figure, tall, gaunt, his face hidden in the shadow. His body was emaciated, its skin stretched thin over brittle bones. But what terrified John the most was its eyes, two glowing red orbs that seemed to bore into his soul. John stumbled back, his breath caught in his throat. The figure took a step towards him, and John ran, nearly tripping over the stairs as he fled back to the main floor. Lisa was waiting for him, tears streaming down her face. "We need to leave," she sobbed. "Now!" As they rushed toward the front door, the air around them grew colder. The walls began to groan and creaked, and the scratching noise grew louder, as though whatever had been tormenting them was no longer content with staying hidden. But when they reached the door, it wouldn't open. No matter how hard John pulled, it remained firmly shut, as though the house itself was holding them captive. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder now, more distinct. They weren't just voices, they were chanting, an incomprehensible glitter language that echoed through the house. The lights flickered violently, and shadows danced across the walls, growing longer and more menacing. Lisa screamed as the air turned freezing. From the walls, from the floor, the shadows began to take form, humanoid figures, distorted and grotesque, their mouths open in silent screams. John grabbed Lisa's hand, pulling her toward the back of the house. There has to be another way out. But as they ran through the halls, the house seemed to shift around them, the layout changing before their eyes. Doors that had once led to other rooms now opened to solid walls. Windows that had been there earlier were gone. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive. Trapped and with nowhere to run, they made their way back to the living room, the shadows closing around them, their eyes glowing red in the dim light. John stood in the front of Lisa with his baseball bat, but deep down, he knew it was futile. The whispers grew louder until they were deafening, and the voices all demanding the same thing: blood. Just as the darkness was about to engulf them, the front door creaked open. A gust of freezing air rushing in from outside. Without thinking, John and Lisa bolted for the exit, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they crossed the threshold, the whispers stopped and the house fell silent. They didn't stop running until they reached their car. Without looking back, John started the engine, and they sped away, leaving the cursed house behind. The next day, when they tried to contact the landlord, they found the number disconnected. When they returned to the address of the house to gather the rest of their belongings, they found nothing but an empty lot. The house was gone, as if they never had been there. But every night since, as they lie in bed, they still hear the whispers, as they know deep down that the house isn't done with them yet.